So you may be seated, and then a little changing it up a little bit today. The kids are actually going to come up here for a sermon first, but just something short. So any kids who want to come up, especially those who like the movie Moana. So hope you'll join me up here. Any kids? I know we have some. Anyone else? All right. So please tell me, please tell me that some of you all have watched the movie Moana. Just a few, huh? You sure? Is it good though? People like it, right? No. Come on. Does anybody think it's the best movie ever? I know some people do. Exactly. It's amazing. Okay. So what if I told you that St. Luke's is like the island of Motunui? I know it sounds weird, but just think about it for a second. So a church often says tradition is its mission. Everything is by design. Everybody has a role. Kind of like the church here too, right? But here's a question for you. If this is an island, and if we're islanders on the island, then why do we leave every Sunday and go somewhere else? This isn't our home, right? Here, let me. I want to see. This is a cool game. Okay, so it's because we're not islanders. We're wayfinders. Do you remember that part? Do you remember, anybody remember that part? Grandma Tala shows Moana the cave. I know you lost it. You'll find it again. You remember that part, right? And what did she figure out? That their ancestors were sailing all around, exploring new places. So that actually was who they were. Okay, do you want to take that back to your dad? Or I just want to learn how this works. So I kind of think that's something we can learn from too. Because as Christians, sometimes we think that like our job is to just come to church, but actually I'd say that's just the start. Oh man, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. That's rough. Do you want me to go over here? Elaine will maybe help. I'm sorry, man. It's a great game. But we have this other job too, and it's to go out in the world. And guess what we do? You know what our job is? This is what God created us to do. Going out into the world, and when we see God working, do you ever notice God working out in the world? Doing good things? You kind of notice some things sometimes, right? Telling your family and friends about it, telling them what they see, telling what you see. Because when you start to notice that for other people, they might get curious too. So I would say that's part of our job. But it's something we kind of have to learn and practice, right? And Jem, I said I'd bring up Maui. Just like Moana had to learn from Maui how to be a wayfinder, we've got to practice being those missionaries out in the world too. But I think we can do it. What do you guys think? You know what you're about to do now? Planting, right? Plant some flowers. Cool, so if you want to follow Miss Elaine, enjoy the gardening. Sorry, man. Did yeah. Oh, man. Can you all hear me back there? You can hear me? Yes. Somebody can hear me. Good. I know, but maybe Donnie can hook me up, but you can use a mic. I guess I could use a mic too. Should I use a mic? Every year, every time. Okay, this will be loud. Yeah. That first part wasn't really for you anyway, so. Man, tough crowd though. Okay. Jeez. Anyway, I hope you heard some of it. the basic gist is, I think that there's something we struggle with as a church too. And we've done this for generations, right? We're so in the habit of thinking that what it means to be Christian is to come to church. And we put all this time and money and effort, and it's beautiful, and it feeds us, and it's comfortable, and it's what we know, and that's great. And I don't necessarily think that's what is kind of the real kernel about what we're called to be, what our mission is in the world. The church going is the first part, right? But then we leave these walls to do what, right? I hate to say it, but I kind of think that instead of churchgoers, what we're called to be is missionaries. I know that is just like, for a lot of us at least, there's a lot of baggage in that term. So we could come up with some other name. We could just use the Moana term, wayfinder. We could be Christian wayfinders. But for lack of a better term, missionary works because it connects with God's mission, right? And God's purpose in the world, and we're invited to join in on that. I actually think a good way of thinking what that means for us is that, like I said with the kids, we keep our eyes open out in the world and try to notice where God is working already. And then just point it out to people. Look, God is here. And this God that's here loves you. It's interesting, this morning I got to the church, and there was a guy sleeping under the stairs here, and I was moving the recycling out to the street, and he woke up and was getting ready, and there was some trash out by the other church door. And I was just about ready to start cleaning that up when he came around the corner. He said, no, I'll do that. And I said, okay, cool, thanks, man. He's like, hey, I didn't cause this, by the way, but yeah, I'm happy to clean this up. And also, here, I want to give you some money. It's all I have right now. And he handed me, I should have counted it, but it looked like about 10 pennies and like a quarter. He's like, that's all I got. I said, really, you can keep that. But he wanted me to have it. Not me, but the church. And stuck around. We talked for a few minutes. He came to the earlier service too. I don't know. I think just the fact that a person who just recently moved from Florida doesn't have a place to sleep at night and searched his pockets and pulled out everything he had to give to the church was for me a little moment that, like, God is here and doing stuff, you know? I don't fully understand it, but moments like that are all around us, you know? And when you just tell those stories to people, I think it does something. But it does take practice. Fortunately, we don't have to be in quite the same difficult situation as Paul was in today. So before, in the book of Acts, we start today with him already in Athens. But what happened before that is he got kicked out of Thessalonica and Berea because his accusers there were saying, this guy and the people with him are turning the world upside down. That's what they're doing. They're turning the world upside down. That's another easy thing for us to forget because many of us have kind of grown up in the Christian story. But for someone who's never heard this story, that there is a God that created heaven and earth and still loves each one of us like a child, that can turn your world upside down. Why don't we share it? And so Paul gets to Athens and gets invited to the Areopagus, which is kind of like going to Harvard Yard in the middle of Harvard University, with all these intellectuals that just want to entertain the latest fashionable idea. And they think Paul will give that to him. Perhaps they're judging him already, thinking this will be a fun kind of country bumpkin to refute once we hear what he has to say. And Paul, you know, to his credit, doesn't start with this kind of either intellectual kind of treatise or even berating them, you know, like, who are you kind of elites? You don't know what the real truth is. Instead, it's interesting what he does. He had been to Athens a couple of days before, and he was paying attention to what he saw in that culture, and he noticed there were a ton of idols there. So idols, gods, to storm and agriculture and fire and wind, even to an unknown God, right? Just to hedge your bets. There's probably some more gods out there we don't know yet. Let's just put an altar out to them too. And so Paul was troubled by this, but starts there. That's where he starts. He compliments them for their religiosity. He said, look, I can tell you are searching. You might be a little confused, but you're searching. Let me tell you more about this unknown God. And what he does next, he uses that doorway to enter into the sharing of the good news. What he's basically doing is co-opting a part of their culture. I actually think that's something we need to practice more of today, because there's fewer and fewer people that kind of have an initial Christian story hook that we can hang anything else on. It's just new to them. And so, frankly, if you want to know a secret, that's kind of why I'm excited about what's happening next door with this community garden. Because we got a bunch of hipsters in North Park that love locally grown food and are just excited about this idea of having a place right here that we can grow stuff, right by the farmer's market. People are pumped. There's already somebody who saw the banner out here and got in touch and says, I want to have bees at St. Luke's. And so we've been talking about that. But it was an excuse to start the conversation. Those are the kind of things I think we're going to be trying to practice in the time ahead. But what do you think? It's a big mind shift, right? Churchgoer to missionary. To think about church and what we get here and are fed by as the strength we use to accomplish this purpose and mission out those doors. And then some things work, and we come back and celebrate together. Some things don't work, and we lament together. And then we try again. It's a big mind shift change. We together are about to be invited into some of that challenge because there's some big things that are about to change for us. In 2 weeks, these pews are going to look different. There's going to be a space, kind of a big space right in the middle here. And it's going to be sort of an open horseshoe. It's going to look different. It's going to look different than it's looked for 59 years. It's a big deal. That's a big deal. That is unsettling. That is, can be potentially troubling. It's something that we're used to. It's something about what it means to be a parishioner at St. Luke's is what it looks like here, And that's something I'm asking you all to start to practice, all of us, to start to let go of a little bit. And it's going to be hard. So I think we need to be easy on each other as this happens, because it's going to be new, right? Now we feel very excited, the Bishops' Committee is excited about the many opportunities it's going to bring to partner with Genesis. I don't know if you've noticed, but the Ferguson bathrooms are now almost newly painted. We've got this nursery in the back here. There's a youth room that's not quite finished, but it's looking really cool downstairs. And that's just the start of what we think are going to be some great fruits of this partnership. But it's going to come with changes. And if what it means to be Christian in North Park here with St. Luke's revolves entirely around what this building looks like, it's going to be really hard, not only just for us personally, but for our faith. And I hope that we can find a way in the time ahead to kind of configure, first of all, what it means and what it looks like to worship here, but also what it means to be a Christian in the world. It's something we all have to practice together. I know I still have a lot to do along those lines. But I hope it's an adventure we can try together. We're really excited about this to come. And in the meantime, just like in Athens, I think there's something that's similar today about what that was like. Because all those idols out there, I think, represented, for them at that time, kind of a, like I said, hedge your bets, like, truth is in here somewhere and that's good enough. Let's just sort of cast the net wide. And I think that is related to, at least among maybe many in my generation now, this kind of creeping relativism, that tolerance as the cardinal virtue for who we are as Americans means that we're losing the belief that there's any one thing we can depend on and stand on, any kind of truth that really matters. You know what I think that is for us, is that story that we have to share. Something there is some substance, some kernel that really matters. And this world needs to hear it. It needs to hear there's something worth living and dying for. That there's a God that loves us and cares about us, and that changes everything. That changes everything. It turns the world upside down. So, even though it's scary for Moana, taking off past that reef, I think we can keep together trying experiments to see what it's going to be like to reaching out to this neighborhood, to trying new experiments. Some will work, some won't. But because we have this belief in this God who loves us, who we can depend on, the substance behind and in the context of a society that isn't ready to make those convictions anymore, any of those commitments anymore. I think we have something that we have to share with the world, and God wants us to. So let us have that courage. Let us be ready for something new. I think it's going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to doing it with you.